All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Ward 3 Neighborhood Planning Assembly. My name is Chris Hazley. I'm one of the steering committee members. I'll be facilitating the meeting tonight. Guess we'll begin the meeting with a call to order. Need a motion to adopt agenda. Fields?
I motion to adopt the agenda.
Got a second?
Sure.
Thank you. All in favor of adopting the agenda? Aye. Thank you. Take a quick review on the ground rules. Please make an effort to start on time, following and finish on time. Wait to be recognized before speaking. Listen to others and try to be open-minded about the discussion. Respect the agenda and the process and remain focused on the issue at hand. Please share your opinions respectfully. Speak out, but not over others, and treat people how you would like to be treated. Ultimately, be respectful of everyone, including our guests. So that was a quick review of the ground rules. We're a little behind, so we're going to roll right into City Council updates from Central District City Councilor Milo Grant. So without further ado, Councilor Grant, it's all you.
Hey, good evening, everyone. I wanted to do a little show and tell, just as a reminder to how to get to what's called Civic Clerk, which is the area on the city's website that takes you to meetings where you can find information. Since I don't have a lot of time and there was some pretty important attachments this week. So this brings you to the homepage and you just search burlingtonvt.gov or the city of Burlington and that agenda button in the lower left-hand corner. When you click on that, it lets you know, hey, you're leaving the site and going someplace else. And then this is what you see when you go into what's called the Civic Clerk portal. So essentially at the top, you can isolate specific categories of meetings if you're looking for a particular meeting. But what we're going to do is if you know the date, we're going to click on the 3rd, which will take us right to the meetings that occurred on the 3rd. And we're going to go down to City Council meeting. And could you click on meeting overview on the left? Meeting overview on the left. Thank you so much. So this shows you the agenda. And when you scroll down, you have the mayor's general affairs, city affairs. This is where Mayor Emma Mulvaney-Stanett gives her updates to the council and to the city. So you all know our friends at Town Meeting TV record the city council meetings, but if you don't have time to watch those meetings, at the bare minimum, you can come here and you can see the mayor's updates to city council, and you'll have a document that you can peruse at your convenience and stay up to date as to what's going on in the city. Also, the Mayor FY25 budget memo. I think this is a really great document that breaks down the situation that we had with the $14.2 million budget gap, decisions that were made, and outcomes that occurred. It's for everything that happened. It is a fairly short, very direct and easy to understand document that really breaks down a lot of the decisions that were made. So I really highly recommend that people go here. You can download it as a PDF or just open it and read it on your screen. This middle area that says final police chief surveys, if you could click on that, please. This takes you to some barcodes in different languages. We are starting off public engagement for what we want in a new police chief. The survey links are going to be distributed and there will be more outreach to the community, but you can start here with the barcode of your choice and start to answer some questions and provide feedback for what you want to have in a new police chief. The group, and I forget their name, but we've hired basically some consultants who have lived experience to or former police chiefs themselves, and they're going to be assisting with recruiting. I had a meeting, other city councilors had a meeting. They were in the city last week for their first round of meeting with people face to face, and they will be back to do more meetings. There'll be options for people to do face to face or on Zoom or just to do these surveys. The mayor appointed a new director of Parks, Recreation, and Waterfront for the city of Burlington. His name is Phil Lewis, and he was introduced at the Monday's meeting. I had a meeting with him as well. He seemed to come off as a really good choice. He's really excited to start work in Burlington and also be ready to support the parks team, which a lot of us know have been through a lot, especially with the rifts that occurred. Moody's gave us a upgrade in our credit rating, which is great for the city. That means when we have to borrow money, we will be able to pay cheaper to borrow that money. So the city's rating went to a AA3 to a AA2, as well as the water enterprise reading as well. The tax fairness and working group report was 2 meetings ago. There's going to be discussions with regards to potential recommendations. One of them is a universal exemption for the first $30,000 to $50,000 of property value of homestead properties. And there is also discussion around the various splinter taxes the city has. That has been something that's really needed to be cleaned up for a while. There's, I think, like 18 of them, and they can be very confusing. There was discussion, and this is all in the mayor's update as well, housing updates. With regards to community safety downtown, I think a lot of us have already seen the Vermont State Police. We don't know what the final budget is going to be. This will be a shared expense. I can't say how much will be covered by the state or how much will be covered by Burlington, but in this case, Burlington will not have to shoulder all of the costs. These shifts are volunteer shifts. So far, we have troopers signing up for a lot of the shifts for noon to 8 p.m. Hopefully for the next 2 months. That's going to be extremely significant to help the downtown core, to help our downtown businesses through the holiday season. I do caution, though, we will see some of the usual issues where we do have individuals who aren't technically breaking the law. So they will be where they're allowed to be in public spaces. That's not going to change, but in terms of more negative behaviors that have been occurring, there'll be more support for that, especially during the holiday season. We really need that assistance to help control retail theft. And the last thing I'll say before questions is that we can expect some of this activity to shift. It is something that we continue to see. It is a reality that we do have to deal with, and people should be aware of that. But definitely these 2 documents are full of so much information, and I do hope that you take the time to read them. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me.
Councilor Grant, does anybody have any questions for the councilor?
I have one question. Let me go.
Yes, please.
I was just wondering, at 8 p.m., what happens then? Because as a resident of downtown, the majority of drug traffic and activity happens after 8 till 4 in the morning. So I support the state troopers being downtown in the daytime, security for tourists and all. But as us residents downtown, we need something from 8 till 4 in the morning.
Well, BPD will be continuing their patrols. And I do recommend that when you do see activity and you can safely do so, especially getting some of these license plates that we see idling, do report that on the drug tip line. Those are looked at, even though you might not get a response. They do use it to track activity. BPD is aware of the activity around the park. I'm in the process of doing some outreach to the Department of Public Works, which handles parking enforcement. You're not allowed to idle. So why are so many cars being allowed to idle? We have parking enforcement until later in the evening. I want tickets given out. So I'll keep you up to date on that as soon as I have that meeting, trying to hopefully have that meeting tomorrow. And it won't be a long meeting. It's just that cars are constantly idling. And it's not only around the park, well, City Hall Park, it has become an issue at times around Battery Park as activity has moved and down at the waterfront area as well.
Hi, is the drug tip line something we call directly, or do we need to go through the non-emergency police line and then?
The drug
Press
test
2 or
is
whatever.
actually an online form, which is different from the other online form. If, can we go to the Burlington Police Department's website? And the reason that they don't, they look at what is submitted through that portal, they just can't comment on any investigations. So they use the information. We have, as I reported last week, we have seen the increase in drug arrest in Burlington, especially under the tenure of interim Chief Burke, which has been great. If we scroll down, they've changed this, and he's going to be also updating the site. Oops. Yeah, thank you. Yep, you fill in that information, and then when you scroll down, you have the opportunity to submit it after you fill in different areas. So if you see hand to hand, as we all know, is an indication, but if you can give more details, especially the idling of cars, because that's really a main indicator. But to your point, late at night, also something I see frequently early in the morning.
Further questions? One by.
By drug arrests, do you also mean alcohol or is that separate?
It might be included, but I will ask because yes, we still have people who have issues with alcohol,
Thank you.
including some of our the college students in our area. That is still the BPD has started BPD has started back up with enforcement of our local bars. So some people have reported seeing that, but they're going in and they're doing checks on IDs and things like that.
Any other further questions, Counselor? I just have one. Last I had checked, we had an anti-idling ordinance in place as one of our
Yes.
strategies to fight climate change. Is there a reason that we're not enforcing that?
Exactly. That is my question.
We couldn't hear what you said.
So several years ago, I don't remember the timeline, and perhaps the counselor can help us, but the city adopted an anti-idling ordinance as a way to cut down on greenhouse gas emissions from automobiles in an attempt to help mitigate the climate crisis. And my question is, are we not enforcing the anti-idling ordinance, which is already on the books?
And that is why I'm having a meeting, because I don't see that happening. I will come downtown, I'll meet constituent at a coffee shop, or I have a morning meeting in City Hall. And I come back and I see these same cars idling and individuals who I do know that are monitoring this. I will send them I'll say, hey, here's a plate that I'm seeing. They're like, oh yeah, no problem. So yeah, that's something that I've noticed, and that's why I'm bringing it up with DPW, especially since they have enforcement or are supposed to have enforcement after 8 p.m.
Any further questions for the counselor? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to our next item on the agenda, which is the CDBG Advisory Board. CDBG stands for Community Development Block Grants. This is funding we get from the federal government, and it is designated for Burlington because we are what's considered an entitlement community. This money is generally intended to help implement strategies to bring people out of poverty. There are generally two types. There's a development grant and an infrastructure grant. Development grants typically go to programs and infrastructure grants due to helping out build out the built environment to support some of these initiatives. In many cities, this funding and its allocation is determined by the mayor's office or some other political designation. But here in Burlington, we have had for a number of years, and I'd probably even dare say a few decades at this point, a citizen advisory board that helps make determinations on how this money should be allocated to better our community. And the way that the CDBG advisory board is set up is every ward that has an NPA, there's 8 of us, gets to elect or appoint a representative to the CDBG advisory board to help with this decision-making process. Typically what happens is different nonprofit or non-government organizations, NGOs, will submit grant applications to support different types of programs, and those applications will go through this process before the committee, and they will be reviewed and evaluated. Based on the information that was provided by the Community and Economic Development Office, there's typically about 15 applicants a year on the applications, generally range from 9 to 10 pages. There is a rubric. Folks on the committee would be asked to read through the different proposals, evaluate them based on the rubric, and make some funding recommendations on how this should be done. I had the opportunity to serve on this committee some 20 years ago when I lived in a different part of the town. And we had the opportunity to say, you know, we're going to fully fund this, we're not going to fund it, or we're going to do partial funding. So there's really a lot of flexibility in this. But one of the things that I took away from it, I think whoever ends up in this role will learn, is this really helps give you a great overview of all the different service providers in our community, the different types of programs that they're going on, and how that money is used to support improvements to help bring people out of poverty and bring make our city better. So without further ado, I'd just like to open the floor for nominations. If there's anyone that wants to serve on this committee. I think Brooks, you had expressed some interest in that, so.
Yes, I would like to.
Wanna make a formal nomination there?
Nate Brooks.
On the second.
Susie seconded.
All right. Anybody else interested in serving on the CDBG advisory board for Burlington Ward 3? Going once, going
Is
twice.
that a raised hand, sir?
So just to let you know, so some of the wards actually send a second person because it's an open meeting. And so if the first person can't attend a meeting or the entire process, oftentimes an alternate can step in if you have 2 people going to that meeting, just letting you know.
That was Charlie Giannoni from Town Meeting TV, who coincidentally has a long and storied history serving on the NPA and I believe possibly also the CDBG board. So I think that's some good advice here. Unless there are any other nominations from the floor or online, I'm going to move to close the nomination at this time. Brooks, do you want to say a little bit or?
No, I'm good. I started looking through some of the online information, and it seems like a very worthy thing. They're working on, the one I looked at, they're actually working on or have finished working on a apartment building in St. Paul Street, like abatement of asbestos and paint and all that kind of stuff. So no, it seems great.
Yeah, it's really a great program. And like, again, we're one of the few places where we have such an opportunity to provide direct and community involvement to help determine how these funds are going to be directed. So I guess we'll just do a quick acclamation. We're all in favor of Brooks Cummings as the Ward 3 NPA representative, CGB, say aye. Aye.
Do I have to live in Ward 3?
Any opposed? All right. Congratulations, Brooks. You'll be
Thank you.
our representative here. And, you know, as the process unfolds in January, February, March, you know, please keep us updated as you go to the various meetings. Let us know. All right. So we are a little ahead of schedule. Tammy, you could kindly take a spot next to Mr. Clark and Ms. Sebastian up there on the panel. We'll get going. So we warned the meeting 5 panelists who I'll introduce in a minute, and had the good fortune of having another individual come on since then. So I'll do the quick introductions. We'll start here, I guess, at the top, go down. Chief Mike Curtin from Burlington Fire Department, Teresa Vizina, Special Assistant to the Mayor for Overdose Prevention Center Implementation. The mayor's very good. Jess Kirby from Vermonters for Criminal Justice Reform. I apologize. I don't have your title. I know it's not executive director, but it's in the leadership.
Yes.
Sebastian Ryder, former resident of North Champlain Street for many years, who will talk about her experience there. Tammy Buddha from the Howard Center Street Outreach Team, and Andre Clark for Street Cats Burlington, who will talk about the efforts that they have. So I'll just give each of you like a minute to kind of, or two, just kind of give a brief overview of your programs and what you do. We'll get into like the Q&A discussions from there. Just ask that when you're answering, we do have an hour, and I know that seems like a lot, but there's 6 of you, and when you do the math and everybody, chimes in for 2 minutes, boom, we've got 12 minutes gone. So we want to try to keep the answers, clear, concise, and to the point, just so we can, facilitate the discussion and try to avoid, back and forth and follow-up questions. If, members of the community have that, we can certainly take that offline. So I guess we'll just go down the line, and then we'll jump right into the questions. So Chief, if you want to take a moment.
Sure. Good evening. Thanks for having me tonight. The fire department responds to any emergency that they're called for, whether it be fires, EMS, hazmat, whatever emergency is called, we're going to respond to. The CRT, I know there was a question brought up about the CRT or reference to it. What the CRT does is it responds primarily to reported overdoses across the city. And what that does is it kind of relieves the engine companies from going on numerous amounts of calls, because by the time the CRT gets there, sometimes they're finding that those people are not there anymore. So instead of having the suppression pieces get beat up, these are people going out there doing that, trying to prevent that from happening to the suppression companies. So that's kind of what the CRT is doing right now.
And that's community response team.
Community response team. No.
Excellent. Ms. Vizina?
Thank you. Well, my title kind of says what I do. So I work at the mayor's office, and I'm supporting the city and our partners in right now we're in the planning phase for the Overdose Prevention Center. And we have an event tomorrow night, and that's why I kind of reached out to you, Chris, to talk a little bit more about that and where we're at in the process. But that's my main role at the city.
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Jess Kirby. I am the Director of Client Services at VCJR, Vermonters for Criminal Justice Reform. I'm a person with lived experience with opioid use disorder. And at VCJR, in addition to working on planning the Overdose Prevention Center with Teresa in the city, we operate a walk-in direct service program for people with substance use disorders, people at high risk of overdose. Over 90% of our clients, I think it's really like 94 or 5% of our clients are currently unhoused. We have been working with about 350 to 400 people. So a lot of unhoused people in Burlington. And we are a door to help with a lot of things, whether that's housing, case management, getting on the list for coordinated entry, connecting you to people for that. We have, winter coats, we have snacks, come say hi, check in, call and see if Valley Vista, is ready with your bed date, connecting people to a lot of healthcare. We have a medical partnership with Johnson Health Center, and we do like walk-in access to, wound care, buprenorphine treatment, mental health treatment, basically just trying to help people that are really at risk, reduce their risk, stay safe, and have a non-judgmental place to go where they can get support with a lot of the things they're struggling with.
My name is Sebastian Ryder, and I guess for tonight's purposes, my title is former resident of the Old North End. I lived at 84 North Champlain Street for 21 years, from 2002 to April of 2023. During the last 7 years of that time, I was living next door to 86 North Champlain Street, which, when you say that address to a lot of law enforcement and fire department personnel, they start nodding and so on. We did our best to deal with that situation, but ultimately it became dangerous enough, and we did not find any help from the city or, frankly, any of the organizations that we reached out to. So we ended up giving up our home and moving. And I completely own the level of privilege that is, that I was living in a very dangerous situation, but found a way out. So I guess that's why I'm here tonight.
So much for YouTube.
Great, thank you. So I'm Tammy Buddha. I'm the team lead for the Howard Center Street Outreach Team. We are a small team of 6. We are primarily based in the downtown Burlington area, but we do respond to calls throughout the entire city of Burlington. We have both proactive and reactive duties, responsibilities. We go out into the community every day, meet the folks who are outside, either living outside, trying to enjoy the public space, either as housed people. I'll back up. A lot of the folks that we work with, in addition to being unhoused, a lot of them are sort of vulnerably housed folks who also rely on having the public third space as a place to not isolate. So we try to check in with them. We do primarily work around connecting people and serving people in the moment around mental health issues, substance use, and homelessness. We are employed by the police department, or by Howard Center, but we're embedded in the police department. We also have a presence in the Chittenden Clinic and at the library. So we're pretty well plugged in to what's going on in the moment so that we can respond to people very rapidly around what they might need and what's going on for them currently. That's kind of it in a nutshell. There's some other aspects to it too, but I think for these purposes, those are the highlights.
I'm Andre Clark. I founded Street Cats Burlington at Champlain Place when it was run by New Place. We were seeing the transition. There was a lot of gaps that were not being filled by service providers. So we kind of took it upon ourselves to try to provide services. We provide, a big part of what we do is like social connection, is just like seeing people for people, connecting with them outside. We collaborate with a number of organizations like CVOEO and different agencies to give them, we do winter coat drives and get them socks. And then we coordinate with Food Not Cops and People's Kitchen. We do the People's Potluck every Tuesday at 8 p.m. And so that's food, resources. Rep Cena, I think that's his last name, Brian, brings out his speaker and we have music playing. So obviously anyone here is welcome to come. People's Kitchen makes amazing food. We're currently doing a supply drive in collaboration with Close Quarters Laundromat in Winooski, accepting warm clothing, coats. And then we also try to just collaborate with anyone who needs supplies, whether that's like BCJR, Howard Center. If we have stuff, try to, coordinate and collaborate between agencies and individuals. And we started by kind of just going around and doing like outreach with snacks and water, and then have kind of expanded. We do a lot of work at King Street Laundromat in collaboration with our nonprofit that I'm on the board of, Vermont Community Wash and Learn, which does free laundry on Wednesdays. Yeah.
Thank you. So I guess, Chief, we'll start with you. Maybe kind of give an overview of what you're seeing on the street and some of the changes and things we're hearing that the situation has changed and the substances that may have been popular in a vote just a few years ago are not what we're seeing here today. And wondering how that has impacted the work that you do with the community response team.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely increased the call volume. Honestly, this would be better if we had one of the members on the ambulance speaking versus me speaking on it, right? The people who are actually in it versus me who's on more of the administrative level of it.
Next year. I think this is gonna be an annual thing in November, so.
Okay. Matter of fact, the fire commission just asked that question. I did that exact thing. I brought a member from the ambulance in to speak about what they were seeing out on the streets. But I mean, to go to, I think the Councilor Grant's, the question was about alcohol. Yes, that is still something we're seeing across the city, and it is considered an overdose. The heroin is the number one thing we're seeing out there on the streets.
Like pure heroin or more of
That
fentanyl?
I don't know. Fentanyl for sure, yes. But I don't know, that'd be more of a PD question than us.
Yeah. How about you, Tammy? Like, does that dovetail with the experience of the Howard Center Street Out team and the calls that you respond to, or?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of substance use, not so, I mean, I started with this program back in the early 2000s, and I think back then it was almost all alcohol. And all of our systems were geared towards alcohol. There were certainly many homeless people, but I think there were maybe like 60 people tops living outside, and that I think would have been a lot. Whereas now it's, you may see some people walking around with a beer, but that's really not like the big concern. And as far as the substances go, I'm not sure that anybody even really knows what they're taking anymore, because the drug supply has become so polluted. I think people may intend to buy an opioid, but it probably has a bunch of other things, and I think that's where a lot of the challenge comes up for the chief's team, because you don't really know what you're responding to. Like, we carry Narcan, but sometimes it's not the opioid that's causing what we're seeing. Like, sometimes it's a real sedative, and the person's just their system is completely depressed and they're not breathing because of that. So clearing out the opioid receptors isn't really the problem. It's something else. So it's become much more complicated. And in terms of volume, it's unfortunate to say there are around 300 people sleeping outside in Burlington. I feel like a majority of them are probably using some sort of substance. That's just a feeling. I don't know if you have any numbers, Jess, but so it's grown and it's intensified and become much more complicated and harder to treat.
So it sounds like there's definitely some situations where the CRT would cross paths with the street average team.
Referrals, yeah, I think we pass referrals to that.
You're more of a responder when someone is struggling for what we would call a medical emergency with an overdose or things of that nature, versus what you do, Andrea, which is you're more of a direct support. You provide the things that people need when they're not struggling with an active medical problem. So maybe you can tell us a little about like some of the work that you've done here, or kind of elaborate on it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think we would obviously respond if an overdose did happen. We're not seeing a lot of substance use, while we're out. I guess really what we've been doing lately, our main strategy has been the people's potluck. People are already there. It's central. I also just don't have an outreach team, and it's just me. So I have very limited capacity, but I'll bring out my table and bring out coats, pants, shirts. We do bring Narcan, needle disposal boxes. So to kind of intersect with that, just to make sure everybody is safe. And then last year we did 2 or 3 events at King Street Laundromat. They were winter gear focused, which served the unhoused population, but we also saw a large number of new Americans. And so we try to, I talked to Shabnam from the King Street Youth Center the other day, and we talked about, we communicate with them as well. So I think we might be doing something around Thanksgiving at King Street. And then we'll also reach out to them so that they can send that newsletter out to the families that are receiving services there. And then really it's just collecting supplies, and they go out. I do have, right now my apartment is a storage, but they go out. The need is so high that the second I get stuff, it is gone. if I put a blanket on a table, it's gone in 30 seconds. It is cold. People are stressed out, and there is a lot of animosity from the community that has kind of made it extra difficult. So we're trying to, push through that. And I think that's just my biggest push, is just like seeing each other as people. I think a lot of dehumanization has happened just because somebody uses substances or lives outside doesn't mean they're problematic. And if I had to go back and live outside, like, I would probably start drinking again. I've been 10 years sober. It is exhausting. I've talked to people who they're only using substances so they can like stay awake at night and not get robbed or raped. And so it's really tough, I know, for people in the community to see this, but it's much tougher to be outside.
When you mentioned animosity from the committee, could you kind of elaborate on some of the barriers, how that's manifesting here in Burlington?
Yeah, I think a lot on an individual level, like people, I saw someone like come out of a bar and look at somebody like sleeping on the Flynn and start like insulting them. And then, people are trying to like get the police to go arrest people for substance use, and they can't walk, right? Like, they're so drunk that they're like falling over and telling these people. And so it's using the systems we have to target people, even though the people who are trying to target them are like doing the same things. They're just using different substances, and alcohol is okay for people. It's actually hard to escape. Like, I've been sober for 10 years. Everywhere I go, every holiday, every community event is alcohol focused, and that's okay. And just dirty looks and people yelling stuff out of their cars. And I've heard a lot of stories about homeless hunters. They're just people who go around and attack people. Actually, Winsong, who passed away last year, told me about people going in the garage and just throwing stuff at people and chasing them down, and they wait until the police like 3 a.m. when there's less police around, and then they go around and they find people, and it's a little scary out there.
As a downtown resident, I've had an opportunity to interact with some of the folks who are currently in house in our community. And I had a conversation, I think just 2 evenings ago, from an individual who I've known for a few years now, who told me exactly that. And he called the hobo hunters, and he was telling me he had been targeted by an individual who had been kind of stalking, I guess, for lack of a better term, and with an airsoft rifle with pepper spray balls. So it's a problem, and we need to do better as a community. One of the things in the conversations that I've had is that you've got a couple different things here to break it down. People that are unhoused, and you got the concurrent medical conditions, some folks who have a mental health condition as well. You have but within the folks who are currently unhoused, you have the folks that are chronically unhoused due to one of those issues that we've just kind of touched upon: an untreated medical condition, substance use disorder, or one or both. And then folks that are acutely unhoused because maybe they're a climate refugee, or their home got washed away in one of the climate events or whatnot. And it seems to me that when we talk about unhoused people, like, it's just like this one big group, and it's really, when you get down under the surface, there's a lot of different groups, and there's different communities and different needs. And one of the things that has become, I think, apparent to me, and I think probably a number of you too, is we don't have the beds. And I remember, last year's panel, Chief LaChance, before he moved on, said, well, there are some folks who think it's a great idea. We should, just kind of send people to rehab. They don't want to go, but here's the thing. We have people that want to go and can't. And as I've been saying for months now, you look around this community, it's very clear. The people who are struggling the most are the least likely to get the services they need. And one of the things that I very strongly believe is that access to mental health services and substance abuse treatment and recovery should not be the sole and exclusive purview of people with private insurance, yet that's what we have. So I guess this will be, an opportunity. And I'll start with Sebastian on this one in terms of the needs. What's your thoughts? And when you, as someone who lived in a community, you lived next to a house that was known for drug use, do you think that there would be any benefit for the state to consider perhaps a new state hospital and really focus our efforts on increasing that shelter and treatment capacity?
I think that that's a great idea. That would be great because there were times that I was in my house that I couldn't leave my house because there was somebody in the midst of a psychotic break or an overdose in my front yard. I remember I got a call, I text actually from my neighbor one night and she said, "Don't go outside." And I was like, "Don't go outside. I have to leave in 15 minutes to pick my husband up from work." She goes, "There's somebody in your front yard either having a nervous breakdown or tweaking out or something." And so I couldn't, it was about, from my front door to my car was about, I guess, 25, 30 feet. And it was clear that it was, I mean, maybe this person wouldn't have bothered me at all, but I didn't know. I would come home to glass having been thrown through my window. I looked up one night and somebody was shining a flashlight in my window. And when we went out to talk to him and said, "Hey, can we help you?" He said, "I'm just looking for stuff that I can steal." And I want to tell you, 7 years of that and not getting any help from any of the calls. I mean, two city councilors came and like, I would say, okay, I would look out my bedroom window and I would say, "We watched a drug deal happen there and it was practically, you know, on the back lawn of the elementary school. And we watched a drug deal there and my cars got blocked in 5 times last week." And they go, "Oh, that's terrible. That's terrible." I'm like, "Who can I call? What can I do?" "Well, let me get," and I would never hear anything. Nothing would ever happen. And after 7 years of that, it's painful to come here tonight and talk about it. It had such it had such an impact on my life. And I am just like, I just want to like go to work, come home, live my life. I don't want to tell anybody how they're supposed to live their life. I don't want anybody to tell me how I'm supposed to live mine. I just want to be able to come and go from my house safely. You know, it just seemed like, assuming safety in my own home, I was asking for this huge favor from the city of Burlington. And eventually we just threw up our hands. I mean, yes. So yeah, I think treatment centers would be great. I'm all for that. Yeah. If people stopped ordering from Amazon, we'd have $1 million a day spent on a treatment center. No, that's the statistic, really. It's $1 million a day that leaves the state. Yep. $500 million a year leaves the state to Amazon.
So buy your books locally, folks. Support your local booksellers and your local merchants.
I just wanted to continue on with what Sebastian was saying, and that I live in a nonprofit downtown, owned by a nonprofit agency. And several of my neighbors clearly have mental health issues and are not only a danger to themselves, but to all of us in the building. And I've heard my closest neighbor say to the person from the nonprofit that supposedly helps the people, begging for a place to go. He calls himself a mental vet, so he's a veteran with mental health issues. He's begging for them to help him, you know. So as much as we hate it, mental health facilities really need to be for people, you know, they need to be here because there's people that want that help, you know. So I'm just saying, you know, that, you know, as much as we hate it, there are people that need that and are asking for it, you know. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, so it's a challenge for a number of ways here. One of the other things we heard, to kind of follow up what Andre said, you know, about this animosity, I think that we are, to use the term that we heard from some of our responders used before, a little bit of compassion fatigue setting in. And I think folks who live and work in downtown are tired of the associated behavioral issues that typically come along with an untreated mental health condition or substance use disorder, so the petty property crime, the shoplifting and things of that nature. And of course, people out in the open, public use and consumption is a concern, both for the business community, those of us who live here, and, you know, for tourists, for bringing families, you know. And certainly there was an incident a few weeks ago over in South Burlington where a young child was struck with a needle, and, you know, everything that comes along with that. And I worry sometimes is how far away are we from that with City Hall Park here. You know, so one of the things that we've heard is just like when we talk about the overdose prevention, it's just like, well, you know, this is wrong. It's like, well, you know, they're using in public for a reason. And the reason is they have nowhere else to go, you know, and they're, you know, they're unhoused. So maybe if we gave them a place to go, you know, we could get them off the street, that would help, but give them a safer place, a warm space, where we can introduce them to services and, you know, hopefully try to get them into a program where they can at least be medically stable, or at least help them to, you know, at the very least stay alive and not end up dead behind a dumpster in some back alley somewhere. So I was hoping that maybe Teresa, you and Jess could talk a little bit more about the concept of the OPC, like how it originated, like where it originated in the world, like, and how it ended up here in Vermont, and, you know, what the goals are with the process and what we hope to solve by putting one here in Burlington.
Sure. Thank you for that question, Chris. I probably won't go too deep on this because, as you said, my answer should be kind of short and concise. So I will just want everyone to know that tomorrow night we'll be doing a very extensive webinar to talk about the OPC and all the questions you just asked, Chris. But just in a nutshell, I will say that I personally have been working for more than a decade on advocating for safe consumption spaces and overdose prevention centers, which is a newer term for the center that we are going to be implementing here in Burlington. So this is not something that is actually just happened over the last couple of years. We've known we needed a solution for a very long time. Act 178 is what is allowing Burlington. Burlington was designated through many years of work with the city council, actually, to be the first city in the state to host the pilot overdose prevention center. So when Act 178 was passed, it allowed for this project to begin. It's funded only through opioid settlement dollars. So that comes from that special pot of money. We are in our early planning phase still. There's a lot of work. This is a very big, complex project. And we are partnering with VCJR, and I'm going to toss it to Jess here to talk a little bit more about their vision for the project. But we know that we need to do this thoughtfully and intentionally, and with community input, as well as our stakeholders, our public safety, our, you know, and public health, and our neighbors, but also people who use drugs, people who are struggling with substance use disorder, folks that are unhoused. We want to make sure that their voices are actually at the top front of this, because if we build a program that they don't have a part of, you know, it's less likely to be helpful for them, because we need to know what they need, right? And this is much more than just a place for folks to use under supervision. This is about wraparound services. This is about building trusting relationships. This is about helping people to come inside, but to build a community, to feel loved, to be seen as the humans that they are, even at their worst, even when they're struggling beyond. And for me, that's what this Overdose Prevention Center is about. It is about caring for every person in our community, even sometimes when they're hard to care about. And I personally am a person in long-term recovery from life-threatening drug use, but I'm also a person with living experience of drug use. And I also have experienced homelessness. And when I was living that experience, there was no way I could survive without using drugs. And so I think that if we could also attend to people's basic human needs first, because that you can't think about treatment if you don't even know where you're gonna lay your head down, if you don't have a pair of clean pants, you have no shoes, like, so I think we really need to really be thinking about some of those basic human needs, housing, that kind of thing. That will allow people to breathe and be able to have the space to think about how to care for themselves. And we really believe that that is what will happen with this center. So I'm gonna toss it to Jess now.
All right, Jess. Thank you.
Okay, so, I think I would say that, we all know we don't have a cure for substance use disorder. I don't know of any city that has it all figured out, that has, made it so that there's no people using drugs. Like, drug use is a part of our world, it will continue to be. Substance use disorder is chronic and relapsing. Even people who get into recovery are very likely to have relapses and periods of use. Like, those are baseline things that we have to accept, and so that's part of reality. And so as long as, that remains the case and we don't have a cure for substance use disorder, we have to have options of how to, help people be safe, help people stay alive, help people reduce harm, also, respond to the community and the impacts that it's having on that. And I think overdose prevention centers are like a very logical answer to that. If people have substance use because they have a chronic relapsing condition and it is part of their survival at that time, I know that's certainly, was the case for me. People are having withdrawal. They are feeling absolutely terrible. When we all have the flu, we stay home. Okay. And we are in the bed and we get ourselves all the medicines we can to feel better. And we have our family and our loved ones dote on us. When people that are outside and don't have a way to correct that and fix that are suffering, people are giving them dirty looks. They're getting chased out of every place they possibly are. They have nothing to eat, no medicine to make it better. It's like torture every single day, and it is extremely hard to access treatment. People cannot just request. I might be in mental health crisis. I might be in someone's yard having an absolute crisis and in psychosis. I can't go to somebody and say, I want to go somewhere for my mental health. That doesn't even exist right now. Like, we need to work on having that before we have anything else. You can't. The only way that you can go to a residential mental health treatment center is if you are, expressing suicidality or homicidality. That is it, and then you can have a brief period of time, where you go to Brattleboro retreat or something like that. And then it falls apart after, you cannot get ongoing psychiatric care. People don't have phones to remember appointments. You missed appointment, you missed your medication, you lost your prescription, you can't get it refilled. People don't have the stability to build on this stuff. So a lot of this relies on us getting that system in a much better place. And I think overdose prevention centers, if we don't want people using drugs in public, people have no other place to be. And it is a part of their survival. And they are having such extreme distress, like we're talking about. People have such emotional pain, such physical pain, all of these things. Then the logical answer would be, people don't want to see it. Okay. People are getting traumatized by witnessing overdoses. People are alarmed and uncomfortable by seeing drug use. We can have a place where people aren't doing that in front of everyone, where people are trained to respond to that, where it doesn't have to be the fire department 10 times a day, where people are comfortable to respond, where syringes can get disposed of, where people are not using in public, where people can take down their level of, fear and on guardness and be able to do what they need to do and then have no judgment about it, and also turn, and maybe they just use the OPC, and this will happen, it's a guarantee, and then turn to me or other staff there and say, hey, can we call, Valley Vista? I really want to go to treatment. Like, I'm sick of this. That will still happen. And it's perfect. You're there already. You're inside. You're with us. We care about you. You're having a snack. You're meeting with your case manager. You didn't do it in the middle of City Hall Park or Church Street. It's like, it's a very logical response to what we have going on. We don't want drug use. It's part of life everywhere, so.
We have Brooks up and then we'll go to Susie. I'm going to interject for a quick second though.
So it's just go ahead.
So you mentioned Valley Vista a couple times, and I know from some of my conversations, some of their folks, I believe it's on the street outreach team. We have a very small number of inpatient treatment facilities here in Vermont, most of which take only private insurance. Some offer scholarships, but not all. Valley Vista is the one that I understand that will pretty much take everybody so long as they don't have a history of violent behavior or criminal behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that that's, pretty interesting, is because, again, people who are most in need of services are the ones least likely to get it. But I did find it, fascinating that, one of the other street outreach workers that I spoke to said, you lose your housing within a week, you don't have a job, you're having trouble showing up to work because you have all these other issues. Then it's just a matter of time before you lose your phone, and then, from there, you're dealing with it. The psychological effects start to set in. And to your point, people don't always start out, struggling with substance use disorder. The substance use disorder sometimes is a result of or a condition of the houselessness that they're experiencing. So I think that was something I kind of wanted to call out and point out, because again, back to, we don't have enough beds for treatment, for shelter. And it just seems that all too often housing first becomes housing only. And I know that there are some other innovative programs here in Vermont, out in Lamoille County. We did ask some of those providers to come. They weren't able to make it this session, but hopefully we'll have, opportunity to talk to some of the folks to see some of the other models that are out there. But we'll go to Brooks, then we'll go to, I think, Daryl, and then Susie.
There we go, Charlie.
And actually, Charlie, we'll go with Charlie because I think Charlie's hand's been up a little bit. So if you want to unmute Charlie there. Barbara. Hi, Charlie. Thank you for waiting patiently.
Can you hear me?
Very barely.
Let's see, how's this?
A little louder.
That's better?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you, Zach, for the goose. I had run into computer problems and I'm sick. You're glad I'm not there. But I come from New York, and in New York I left in '84, and it was already getting bad like this. Only it was crack instead of the stuff that they've got now, which, tell you the truth, is worse. It should never have left the operating room. I speak to people every day. I live near the park. I live 1 block from the park, and I talk to people. I talk to security guys. I talk to people who are down and out. I do not talk to the people who seem most desperate, most distrustful, and most nutty, because it just doesn't pay. I mean, they have it's like they're in a play, and all you have to do is walk up to them and you're in their play, and you're the character they don't like. So I do what I can, but it's there's very little. I just feel that I'm gathering information, and when I can, I just treat people like they're people. And as far as a safe injection place and a place where they can get some advice and get off the street, and if they do drugs, do it out of the sight of the public, I think that's a great idea, and it's a real start. And there are people who hate the idea because they think we're condoning it and, permitting it or something, or encouraging them. An addict doesn't need to be encouraged. They are fully encouraged already. So that's not what to worry about. It's a question of whether they're going to get off the street and whether they're going to communicate with people who are not as bad off. People and people. And everybody has different problems. I have problems that relatively are minor and silly to treat as problems.
Charlie, you're fading out, so you'll have
Yeah,
to.
do you have a question there, Charlie?
My voice is fading out? Well, that just shows you I'm sick.
Oh.
A question. I don't know if I have a question. I just want people to talk more to people and to see if we can get more going with what you've already been talking about, reaching people and treating people as people with problems instead of the doom squad, those who are threaten us. We have to get away from that. And I think you're doing a great thing.
All right, thanks, Charlie. Appreciate you sharing your perspective there. It's always great to hear your reflections from your time in New York. I know folks certainly enjoy that.
Thank you.
It's Daryl and then Susie, I think, and then Brooks. Sorry.
So,
I should probably write this stuff down.
so I don't know if you're aware, but we had a resolution several months ago not to put the OPC in Ward 3. So part of my question to you guys is, how are we not going to have a Clark Street situation again in Ward 3? I think you're all very aware of what's going on with the Howard Needle Exchange Program and the drug the drug dealers that are circling that block, and the terror that was going on with people that own houses and homes on Clark Street.
I'll just briefly say that, we're super committed to making sure that we are good neighbors. We have been working with this population by the hundreds for a really long time and have successfully been able to not have, major issues at all. On the street, I worked at the Clark Street program for many years. It's been really recent that there's been some more problems. We absolutely are on it. We're on Bank Street right now. We have not had any issues. We have hundreds of people a week coming. We are absolutely the first ones out there telling people hey, you got to get going, guys. Where are you going? You need help getting there? Whatever it is, we are deeply committed to that. We have a lot of experience doing this. I think, that speaking for them, Howard Center went through a big transition a few years ago. A lot of key staff members that had been there for many years, myself included, moved on. And I think that they went through a big transition with new staff and people that didn't know the population in the same way. And we do know the population really well. And our clients really respect us. They value what we do. And we're going to be addressing it every day. And so we're very committed to that.
How do you manage the fact that I'm going to have a place where people can legally take drugs, but there's no drug supply? So it's like handing out needles. Okay, the reason we're handing out needles is because somebody's going to inject drugs, but we're not going to supply them with the drugs. So somebody from out of state or whatever is going to sell them the drugs, and they're going to circle around the facility because that's the place to buy drugs. Because the whole deal with OPC is we have to have it in Ward 3 because people on drugs are not going to walk 6 or 7 blocks away. Right? So they're not going to go somewhere else to buy their drugs and then wander back to the OPC. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
I think I would just like to say that we have not determined where the OPC will be located. So just for the record, there is a process that will happen in regards to site selection. So no one has really chosen where this site is going to be. And I think that we can't assume that drug dealers are just only going to be hanging around the OPC. I think people have their ways of getting the supply, their drug supply in the way that works for them. And quite honestly, exactly to what Jess was saying, drug use is a part of our world. Drug use has been around for eons, right? And we see problematic drug use. It's different now, right? And so we also will have the ability to do drug checking, which I think someone spoke to earlier, just not knowing what's in the supply, that it is really poisoned. And people are going to get their drugs, whether they come to the OPC or not. They are going to source their drugs somewhere. And so it isn't that the OPC is bringing in people to deal drugs, that those folks were already getting their supply somewhere else. So I guess I just needed to say that. And to the point that where this is going to be, we'll talk a lot more about that. But the community survey that's going to be going out is part of better understanding where a good location might be. And it's going to be just one piece, but it's also going to be data driven. And so I think that, we can't make big assumptions that things are going to happen that we don't know yet. And there will be evaluation. I think one of the big differences between Clark Street maybe and what's going to happen at the OPC is people can come inside and the staff are going to be trained in a very, very different way. Safe recovery at Howard Central Safe Recovery, their staff are not going to be trained in the same way that the staff at the OPC are going to be trained. There is an incredible amount of guidelines specifically for this, because this is also, it's a health center, it's a health hub, as well as providing that supervision is so that there are trained medical staff and trained peers who are right there addressing things in a different way. And I think that's really important to keep in mind. And also the relationships that we will have with our community partners. And I really look forward to working with Chief Curtin and Chief Burke specifically around ways that we can work together, have response plans, have emergency plans. All of this is required for the OPC, and it's just a different kind of program. So I hope that people can give it a chance, see how it goes. We all know that there is no universe where anything is going to be done and there might not be some bumps in the roads and some hiccups and some things to address, but we are all very committed to addressing those issues and working together to do that. And I know that VCJR is always been a very good neighbor. And that's why the city of Burlington actually chose VCJR to be the provider. This is about relationships. And when you have relationships like the relationships that Jess and Sass have with the folks that they're serving, it is a game changer. And I just, I can't
They
say much
police each
more
other,
than-
they
Yeah.
really do. They're like,
It just seems like rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Can I respond one thing
let's
to that?
just
I just
respond.
want to say another thing, I use drugs for a long time of my life. I work closely with people who use drugs. I'm very well aware of how the inner workings of that system are. And I will say that drug dealers are already around this area, they're frequent in the park. As long as there are drugs, that would continue. So if we have a place that's going to provide help in a lot of other ways, it can only be a benefit. It's not like that's adding. We already have people using drugs. We have people selling drugs. There are ways that that's being addressed, but drug dealers. Drug dealers.
Let's
I
not
know.
just finish.
But-
So
But just that, I just say that, that drug dealers don't have to, go circling a program. They really don't. Like mostly drug dealers that are selling a lot of drugs, they're in apartments and people are coming to them. That's really what the main sources of that are happening. They can sell drugs just fine without circling the OPC, and that's just a fact of.
what's your view about standing room across?
Brooks, you gotta facilitate here. We'll circle back. I want to get to the Brooks. Is Daryl, Susie?
Milo had a question.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, we got a hot mic. The other hot mic, that's easier.
Thank you. I just wanted to say a couple of things very quickly, just to piggyback on the comments that were just made. Lovely to see you. I was one of the city councilors. Well, actually, was I a city councilor at the time, or was I police commissioner?
Lovely ear for me to talk to.
At the time, the enforcement was appalling. It was appalling. The former police chief literally said that Sebastian, her neighbor, he treated them like they had a personality conflict with their neighbor. That was the language that he used. Enforcement right now has just dramatically improved. I used to live on Clark Street. I used to live next to that building has been some sort of for decades. The point that the dealers are operating out of apartments really needs to be hammered home. Major issue with why Clark Street for a period of time got so bad is down the street and around the corner was a major drug house on Grant Street. And the activity there was causing problems on Grant Street and the surrounding streets. People were not only using on Clark Street, they were using on Grant Street, they were on Peru, they were by the pods, they were in that area, period. So I just want people to believe in that because until we had the enforcement, thank you, Chief Burt, and can't stress enough, our enforcement right now is night and day. Not fully where we need it to be, but it is night and day. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. I'm gonna jump to Andre because he is a panelist. I think some follow-ups and we haven't heard a lot from him today. So let's see what Andre has to say, then we'll go back to Susie there.
I guess I just wanted to comment on the like dealing at the OPC from like a drug dealer's perspective, which I'm not a drug dealer, but it is impractical to go to a place that has very likely has video cameras, is staffed, is monitored, and works closely with the police department and fire to sell narcotics. Like, you don't need to go to where people are using the drugs to sell drugs. People are going to get drugs. People will walk an hour and a half if they're in withdrawal, because withdrawal is absolutely miserable. It's miserable to just like be near. And I talked to an officer in City Hall Park the other day. And, the talk for a while was that like the pods created this problem. The pods were, creating drug use and crime. And that officer said like he wishes that we could scale up what the pods are doing because they haven't gone there. Like, they barely go there. And it's because there's an operating partner there who holds people accountable and has the relationships where they can say, hey, this can risk us. Like, I was in the park the other day and there was some conflict and I said, this could harm what we're doing and our ability to like provide care. And they were like, I understand. And they stopped. Right. And so when you build these relationships with people, change can happen, right? Like, people aren't going to, if a drug dealer is standing in front of the OPC, somebody is going to say something. A staff member is going to let the police know, and that person will be on camera handing drugs off. And the police have challenges, right? It's hard to, like what the officer said, it's like hard to like get a conviction because there's the weight of evidence needs to be so high. But if you're on camera doing it, it just seems, I worked at the Champlain Place for a while and the same problems, like the community had the same concerns. There's going to be so much crime. It's going to be really bad. And then instead the neighborhood people were just volunteering and we were able to like that. It's super mellow there. I go by there all of the time. I walk by the pods all of the time. The drug houses are a real problem. There was one across from me for a while that leaks out. That's where I have seen some real concerns, but the police department does respond to those. If people are using the drug tip reporting line and reporting and giving descriptions, they will show up eventually. Now, they did not before. Murad was on. Maybe it was maybe this NPA meeting where he just said we're not going to respond to calls for drug deals. Like, that's just like not a thing we're gonna do. And that's not the case anymore.
Carol, wanted to get a word in for a while now. Let's go.
The only question I had from a while back was when Jess was talking about the drug abuse and the antisocial behavior behind it, and we have to accept that there's drug abuse. And then when Teresa was talking about the drugs, it was in a nonchalant way. Only question I had was, why, as a civilized society, do we have to accept this? That's the only question I got. Why do we have to accept that the fact that we got people on drugs, people committing antisocial behavior, ruining our community? Why is it an acceptable thing?
Right. So just to clarify, what I mean by that is just that some things in our reality just are. We have climate change, like we don't like it. We accept that that is a part of reality. So I'm not saying accept like this is a positive thing. I'm saying that drug use has been going on for a very long time. So if we don't believe in it, we know that there are harms that it causes, that there's not a way to 100% address that. I don't know of any place anywhere that's done that. So that's all I mean by that, is that there's a lot of social problems, right? You know, this is a social problem that we have. This is a condition that people really struggle with. And so we have to find responses to it. So just to clarify, that's what I meant by that. You know, that this is something that we have to deal with. Yeah.
All right, Susie Dow.
So I wanted to know at the center what your hours would be and how long can a person come and spend at the center?
So the hours, we're kind of figuring all that out. That's gonna happen through the service assessment. That's gonna happen to talking to people who would utilize the center and, you know, experts on OPC that are already doing it. So we don't really know yet what the hours will be. And in terms of a lot of the logistics, we're getting technical assistance from Weber Renew and a program in Rhode Island that's already implementing. So we can learn from a lot of their mistakes and just hear from people who are already doing it, you know, things that make sense in terms of that. But we definitely are wanting to welcome people and, you know, have people engage in services there, and they'll have relationships, and we're not going to be kicking people out left and right.
Well, one of the things that really concerns me is that, you know, with winter coming and a shelter will open at, I don't know what, 8 o'clock at night, and then at 8 o'clock in the morning, the people are kicked right back out into the cold that existed the night before. And it just seems like there's no place for the people on the street to go.
I always say that.
And I understand the merchant situation. I have great empathy for the merchants downtown and their struggles. I totally do. But you kick people, they have nowhere to go.
But to be in public somewhere.
To be in public somewhere. So you can kick them out of the park, but then they'll be on somebody else. And I just think if we don't address that, we're like putting Band-Aids on a bleeding artery.
Tammy.
Well,
You look like you had something to say, so.
well, it's not anything good. The problem is we don't even really have anywhere for people to go at night. I was just talking to Sarah Russell this morning, who was the special assistant to end homelessness for the city. Now she's at CDOEO, so she just started there and we were reconnecting. And like I said, we've got like 300 people living rough, and we're gonna get 50 more beds. Right. So, you know, that's okay, good. 50 more beds. We're gonna have 50 more beds through the winter, and CDOEO will be CDOEO will be putting on the extreme cold shelter again. But other than that, it's 250 people out. Substance use or not. So that was what I had to say. It wasn't nothing uplifting.
Can I ask her just one quick question? What time I saw street outreach this morning, like at 7:45. I didn't think you started till 10.
On the corner by CVS?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you starting, or do you have earlier hours?
No, we are always here at 8. The guys are typically in roll call, doing crossover with the police. They let us know what's happened, what might be happening.
Okay.
We kind of try to like tie up, well, this is what happened on our end last night so that everybody can start the day. I was getting texts on my phone from merchants, and I guess there was police calls flooding. So as soon as they're able to get them, they popped them out. But yeah, we're here. Functionally, we're here from like 8 o'clock on, 8 to 8, except on the weekends, and then it's 10:30 to 6. And I wanted to just ask Jess, so this morning, this morning we got called to somebody that was just really struggling. She was just very, very high. And is that, so assuming if somebody was that high, would they be able to stay at the OPC and get through it?
We're, like I said, we're getting technical assistance and figuring that all out. But yes, the idea, part of the idea is that people will be able to be there when they're struggling the most in those types of situations.
Okay.
So, yeah, good.
That would be helpful.
Yeah, we wouldn't want them to be in that situation, to come use the site and be really struggling,
But
the
sometimes
symptoms,
that's-
and then they're right up.
But sometimes that's
I know.
realistically what happens
Yeah.
in every other, medically, psychiatrically, substance.
Totally.
Because they're like, well, it's unsafe for the rest of the
Yeah.
participants. And I understand that. But yeah, if there was a place that people could go and just be really high, safely,
Yeah,
that would be pretty phenomenal
it's a big problem here now.
too. Yeah, especially in the winter, because we've spent times in the summertime, it's like, okay, well, you've got some water, you're in some shade, there's some friends around you, we'll keep circling back. But in the winter, we've spent hours with people because it's 20 degrees below zero with the wind chill. And if you fall over and nobody sees you behind that shrub,
Absolutely.
so, it's life threatening at that point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Add,
Yeah,
just like a
Right.
quick,
give me a time to formulate a question.
the emergency shelter that the city and CVOER ran last year opened for 5 nights, I think. Our benchmark is -10.
Yep.
Which is inhumane and maybe
But
criminal.
better than it was.
Better. They got the state to change to -10.
Right. It was negative
But
20.
the state was -20. I am pushing for the city to go to 0 degrees. And then maybe the state slowly follows. It used to be 20 degrees. It wasn't an emergency shelter. We had more beds then, but it was adverse weather conditions were kicked in when it was like 20 degrees or 32 degrees and a 50% chance of precipitation. It's cold outside when it's 0 degrees.
Yes.
It's cold outside now,
It's cold outside now.
especially when it's raining and your clothes are all wet and.
Yeah.
You can die of hypothermia. You don't have to freeze.
Yeah.
So let's talk
Pretty
about the
creepy.
big shiny Snorlax here in the middle of the room that we what about is, and these are the folks that I kind of alluded, I think, when I invited a number of you to the panel about the folks that are quote unquote service resistant. And we've heard from folks throughout various city departments that the folks that are engaging in the behavior that's infringing on the rights of others and causing harm to the community, it's a very small number of the people who are totally unhoused. And I think people in the community see that behavior and then they ascribe it to everyone that's unhoused, which is not exactly, I think, accurate nor fair assessment. But at the same time, if we're operating from the assumption that substance use disorder is a bona fide medical condition, we need to recognize that patients have a legal right to refuse service. And a number of them have. So how do we deal with folks who are service resistant but continue on an ongoing manner to engage in this type of behavior? They cause harm to the computer, they infringe upon the rights of others, but they're not willing to seek treatment. What do we do for them then? Do we send them to jail? Is that the solution?
Right now if you're talking about involuntary commitment of some kind, that really is the only solution that we have, that somebody would be jailed for some kind of legal infraction, be robbery or, something that was accessory to their substance use. And that's obviously, I'm not sure of the state of treatment in corrections in Vermont right now, but I don't think it's like cutting edge or great. There's none. Okay. There used to be some, and then I knew there was none, and I didn't know where we were right now.
I think they're working on some stuff, but not.
Okay. So there's that. And then in terms of like, if somebody is a danger to themselves or others, due to symptoms that they're experiencing from a mental illness or a psychosis, then they can be involuntarily committed, right? Through a judicial process. There's no such process for a person who's acting in sometimes a completely indiscernible manner, right? They look completely indistinguishable one from the other, whether if it's drug-induced psychosis or mental health-induced psychosis. But if it's determined at the ED through urinalysis or something like that, that it's drug-induced psychosis, there's no venue, there's no statute vehicle to involuntarily commit that person, even just to stabilize. Let alone to say, you're gonna like stay long enough to think about treatment. So I guess the answer to that is we don't have anything.
I go then. All right, then I'm gonna pivot to you, Sebastian.
I just have one thing that I would say is that service resistant people, I feel really strongly, just because I know a lot of these people, that for a lot of people, it's that the system isn't working for them. It's not that they truly don't want treatment or, have just no care about any of that and are having fun and really excited about their situation. It's honestly that I've tried the clinic 5 to 10 to 15 times. I'm homeless. I don't have transportation. I don't have money for the bus. I, can't get there enough times to make it worth my while to go. I get one dose, every 10 to 15 days. And so I've given up. I'm defeated because our system is really, really high barriered. I have tried to call Serenity House 10 times. Each time I leave a message when they call back, I'm not at that phone anymore. I get kicked out because I don't know how to, or am unable to navigate perfectly in these systems sometimes. And really the expectations are high for people. The reasons why people get kicked out, I've had people get kicked out of treatment for having a vitamin that was found in the corner of their bag, like that's a true story that's happened, and a lot of things like it, because like the markings were rubbed off because it had been in the corner of a duffel bag for 5 years, and so they couldn't tell what it was. The person's UA was negative, but they were back on City Hall Park in, an hour. And so I think a lot of it is that our treatment system, it can't be understated. It's bad, it's like mental health is, it's just all bad. And I think a lot of it is that, people can't get treatment and options that work for them. They can't navigate all of it, So I just think that's an important thing to say. And we send people to Brattleboro or, Shep 6 at the hospital for a very couple days, short period of time to stabilize, but that things fall apart right away. I can't tell you how many times, like called 911 for people that are really having psychosis and things. They can walk in front of a car and no joke, they're back down the hill in an hour in the exact same state, And so like, it's, but they can't even voluntarily go somewhere. To me, I feel like we need to first like make that better, make it so that people who want treatment, like you were saying, there's a lot of people that do, can go, like it's the place to start, I think,
So we're living in a non-binary world, yet so many of our choices are come back in binary terms. So we're going to circle back to that thought in a little bit. But so we talked about the OPC as part of, an overall strategy of quote unquote harm reduction, but yet because of the individuals who engage in behavior as a result of their inability or unwillingness to seek or find treatment, it's that also has created harm in our community. And as one local merchant once said to me, where's the harm reduction for the rest of us? And I look at people like Sebastian and that have been on the other end of it, and they have lived experience too. So where is the harm reduction for that? So Sebastian, I'd just like to ask you, like, what do you think, based on some of the things that you've heard tonight, like what would you like to see happen as someone who's had to be on the other end of that and kind of had to deal with the behavioral issues that come along with untreated medical conditions?
Well, I mean, I remember when I first started to sense that there were some issues with my next door neighbors, and it was the appearance of 17 cats. So like any good Vermonter, when they all started using my yard for their restroom, I went to my neighbor and I said, I used to have a cat, and like, here's her litter box and here's the cat litter that she left, and can I help? And nope. I was rebuffed. My neighbor, would knock on our door, ask for $20. We would give them $20. Ostensibly, it was one year, it was for, it was Thanksgiving. So she wanted to buy stuffing. And I passed her a couple hours later, with a tall boy on Church Street. So she lied. Okay, I gave her $20. $20 is for her to do with as she sees fit. If she changed her mind about the stuffing, whatever. I just felt like of all the people that I reached out to, of the people that I begged for help, like I don't even remember one person saying anything to me about how they could like help for my car not to be blocked in when I came home from work, how I could come and go from my own driveway, how I could not be called a cunt on my way from my front door to my car, because the day before I'd asked somebody to move their car. I mean, the chaos was, I can't even describe living next door to that chaos for 7 years and feeling like there was no help coming from anywhere of all the city agencies that I begged. And I'm glad that the enforcement is better. I really am. And I really appreciate that you were a really sympathetic ear when we were going through all that. But yeah, compassion fatigue. I don't know. I have no idea what the answer is because I checked out of the discussion such a long time ago. The idea of coming here today and reliving some of those 7 years, it was so painful. I mean, it's really, really painful to think back on that time and living next door to drug dealers for 7 years. And yeah, I'm sure drug dealers do work out of their apartments because I live next to one of them. I don't know.
And, as a downtown resident, I think a lot of the reluctance that you see and the resistance to having these types of programs here in our city is because people have had similar lived experience. It's not too far in their very, immediate future. But back to that binary choice. So they've, person's service resistant because any number of reasons. And again, that goes back to everything's binary choice. We should be presenting people with a suite of options. The more options and opportunities we give people, the more different paths to recovery. I think the greater the likelihood someone will find something that they can latch onto and be successful. But again, all too often, there's barriers to that. And a lot of them happen to be, having to do with access and finances. But let's just say, the individual says, no, I don't want to go rehab. And then we send them off to the correctional system. And well, maybe they get sober and they get their act together. That's great. And they come out but now they've got a criminal record. Now they're going to have problems finding housing. Now they're going to have problems finding a job. So it's like, we set them up for failure right out of the get-go. So when you talk about, Tammy, you mentioned, involuntary commitment, I kind of think of it more as a compulsory program for compassionate custodial care. Kind of, to use a hockey analogy, you blow the whistle and you send them to the box score. Hey, you're not playing by the rules. You're not behaving. You got to go take a timeout because at the end of the day, the law applies equally to everybody, regardless of their housing status, regardless of their medical status. You have to treat people, the right way. And so I think the thought there behind, the CPCCC is that, hey, we understand that these folks are not criminals. They don't belong in jail long term, but they are acting in a manner causing harm to our community. And clearly severe harm to some people who have been on the receiving end of it and clearly got no help or support from the city. But a way to remove them on a temporary basis from society to help get them back on track, but in a way that when they come out on the other side, they're not dealing with the fact that, oh, you're a convicted felon now, and now I'm not going to be able to find housing. I mean, it's hard enough to struggle with a medical condition, and then you do get help, and then you think you're getting your life back on track, and all of a sudden you have all these other issues. So I'm just wondering, what those of you on the panel think of that. I don't know, Chief, we haven't heard from you in a little bit. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, maybe outside.
Not my wheelhouse, but
that's what you're having last week, last year too, but I guess the brainstorm. So if that's not, your wheelhouse, but seriously though, like what other ideas can we have so that it's not treatment or jail? Because that's really what it seems like we have here in Vermont and nationwide. And it goes back to, let's try to find more pathways to get people on the road to recovery. What are some thoughts or, things that you may have seen elsewhere, other places, Europe, or even ideas, that we could explore here in our community to kind of give people more options?
Well, I do think the discussion before we were having of like a mental health facility, it truly would help a lot. And I think you'd see if we start addressing those needs, you'd see that trickle down effect of, the homelessness, right? Because everything is kind of intertwined. So I think you see a good ripple effect if we could address that specifically. That's pretty much another.
Okay. That's fair. Thank
I don't know if anyone wants to add anything else off that.
Okay.
Teresa, truly
We'll
do
just go down the line on this one.
I kind of, right, I'm taking off my whatever, my.
Speaking as a community.
I'm speaking as me, as Teresa, a community member, as a private citizen, because I think about this a lot actually. And I think about all the different places that I have been. I've had a lifetime of of struggles, actually. And not everything worked that I tried, but there were many things that did. And I think when we talk about that buffet of options, that is really important, and something that I have dreamed about doing, just separate from my role, is, you know, having a place where people can go that's actually outside of the city, that's in nature, where people can go and just be somewhere different, you know, and they need to be with people that genuinely care and care about them, completely judgment free, but still has all of the medical and mental health and all of those things, but just where it doesn't feel like you're, you know, being sent away to like an institution, or you're, you know, being sent to a treatment center that is kind of like herding cattle. Do you know what like, I have been to many different facilities, and I am pretty open about myself and some of my struggles. And I had an opportunity to go to an incredible facility where I was treated in a way I had never been treated anywhere else. And it was small things like arriving and there was slippers and a robe, having your own room, food that was nourishing, wellness services that were available, picking your own path, like ability to just step away a little bit. And I know, and not everybody is service resistant. They just haven't found that thing or that place or those people that where they can really like start to heal. And so I would love to see something like that pop up, and I would be the first one to be on that bandwagon. So
the key to this, Teresa, is that it has to be voluntary, and we have to convince people to go in a voluntary manner, and then it would work.
Agreed. And once one person goes and they're like, "Wow, that was amazing," you know. So anyway, that's just my little spiel. That's just, it really is something close to my heart. I would love to be a part of someday.
Sebastian.
I'm just wondering how many people read the article that did kind of a compare and contrast between the drug legalization that took place in Portugal and the drug legalization that took place in Portland. And Portugal was actually considered to be a pretty successful model, because when people committed crimes behind their drug use, that was when the law came down and was really pretty heavy-handed about twisting people's arms very strongly to send them into treatment. If you could use drugs and not commit crimes, then you were free to do whatever you like. And I think Portland did not have a model like that, and that's why it ended up turning into chaos. It's a very in-depth article. It's very good. I recommend people read it if they haven't. It's for a couple of years ago, probably if you Googled Portland versus Portugal drug legalization, you'd probably find it.
Anybody else in the panelists? Jess, Tammy.
I'll just say quickly, you know, I really think we need to focus on people who are asking for treatment, helping them be able to get it first, you know, and expanding our treatment options, expanding the length of time that people can go for, you know, making it more accessible, making it so we can do in the moment screenings for treatment. Like there's a lot we can do to improve the treatment system, you know, like to start with, I think, but also, you know, I think we should be looking at the evidence about this, and, you know, like from, you know, my understanding, you know, it's, you know, forced treatment or whatever you want to call it is not associated with better outcomes. I also know that people are mandated to treatment in Vermont all the time, you know, substance use treatment especially, like that happens through the court system often, like that. We don't not have that ever happening. People are often, you know, mandated to treatment, you know, I drive people all the time that are, you know, mandated to go. It's one of the screening questions, you know, and so that's like like forced treatment, it's just like when people become incarcerated, also people are being disrupted from their connections, from any progress they were making, from their housing workers, they get closed off lists. All kinds of things can happen when people are kind of abruptly without their own planning and figuring out, and without being able to have their own autonomy in it, that can be really harmful. So again, I really think, the place to start is, making our treatment system that we have right now better. And so people, when are asking for treatment, can get quality treatment and for a longer period of time. So.
Tammy, Andre, I think Zach had a final parting comment, and since we haven't heard from Zach yet tonight, we will give him the final word.
So I agree with both Jess and Teresa. I think it had a lot of problems, but I think back to like Maple Leaf, which was nearby, you could just get there in a half hour.
I got kicked out though. Yeah. But I liked
Were you
it.
smoking?
No, I wasn't smoking.
Okay.
No, I will.
Yeah. But like something like a Maple Leaf that was near
After the mics are off.
people, right now it's like you can go to Brattleboro. Well, it's like, go to Brattleboro. How am I going to get back? It's like you're on the other end of the planet. So there's some psychological barriers there for a lot of people who are afraid of being abandoned. And I think, getting that back, I think having a place for people and a means for people to detox quickly would be phenomenal, because since we lost Act One and we never really had like a good opioid version of Act One, but something like that would be very helpful. But I do, so mostly, yes, I think focus on the people who actually want assistance when they want it, because there's plenty of those. And that like provides hope, and other people see other people doing it, and then they want to do it too, or they feel like maybe I could do that. If he can do that, maybe I can too. So you get like some positive motion. But there are also some people, a very small group of people, who, they're the kid in class that just keeps breaking the rules, and the teacher doesn't want to deal with them, and it's not fair. And it makes it bad for everybody. And I feel, and it also doesn't do that person a ton of service either, because they're getting to do things because they've created such an unpleasant response for the entire community that we say, whatever, that's them, just let them do it. Probably kind of like the people you lived across the street from.
Next door to.
Even better.
Driveway then.
I might know who it was.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah. But I think we do need to really give the people who want to do better all the opportunities that we can possibly get. And I don't know where the money's going to come for that, because that's part of our problem. We don't have the housing, we don't have the this, we don't have the that. But we should build or dream or plan like we do. But we shouldn't lose sight of, we really, without shaming, without being damning, I think we do need to find some way to bring back consequences. We've really kind of just those out the window, and I don't think that that's been entirely helpful. Not for the community at large, and not for the client specifically, because they're just banging around out there, and sometimes I wonder, what is it that's going to keep them safe, and maybe at that point it's not about them being in a space where they're going to be able to get past their addiction, but they will be safe for a little bit. So that's my thought on that. I'm just, pulling somebody from in front of a truck too many times, and you're like, I wish we could do something to just make you stay safe, but sometimes you can't. So. No.
I don't really fully know what the answer is. I know that the systems that we have in place now aren't working, like Valley Vista, Serenity House, it's 2 weeks. People, they pay for 2 weeks, and there's no pathway to housing after. You just go to Valley Vista, and then you come outside into your same social network. So it could be, like if there's treatment, more recovery homes. I work for Good Samaritan Haven in Washington County, and we have like a recovery oriented shelter. so that when we send someone from one of our other shelter sites to Valley Vista or Serenity House, when they come out, they have a recovery oriented community and a safe place to sleep. And I think more programs like that would be really great. I know that I read about a program that for people who abuse alcohol, and they give them alcohol every day. Which is like, it seems like, why would you do that? But it's like a small amount to like curb the withdrawals and allow them to still be in a safe, but not, not have 10 beers, but have a beer and be okay in a safe site. And I don't know if, something like that could work for other substances where people are like, and then once they're there and they're supervised and, we know they're not dying, because that's the real problem. Like the concern with opioids is death to the individual. The harm to the community is like residual trauma from like seeing somebody overdose. But nobody is going to like use an opioid and try to like fight 20 people. Somebody who drinks alcohol will, right? Like I know, because I was that person. I tried to fight somebody every time I got drunk, or not every time, but I would always get to a point. And we treat that substance as an okay thing, even though all of the data suggests like violence comes from alcohol use. It's like there's like a homeless training academy that I like run the training at my organization. He talks about it's like alcohol and then meth and then crack and then like marijuana and then opioids. And so like the danger to the community is watching someone die from opioids. The danger from alcohol is like you might get stabbed or punched in the face.
I just don't think that's true. I work in a store where people steal from us every single day to feed their habit. That's not just watching somebody die.
It's a different kind of crime.
Yeah.
It is. I think I'm talking specifically about like physical violence. Somebody on opioids probably, if they're high enough, they're not going to go steal. They're going to
Be asleep.
They're going to be asleep. To get that stuff, they may go steal. But to eliminate that, like we need to eliminate the despair in communities. We need to go back to when people are 5 and reduce childhood trauma and focus on like ACEs, which are adverse childhood experiences, and how do we like reduce trauma there? How do we provide intervention? Like the King Street Center has a mentoring program, right? Like these intervention programs in youth, and then providing more wraparound services, and then just like a place for people to be. And like so Vermont Community Watch and Learn, the King Street Loungers nonprofit, we actually have a 0 barrier workforce training program. And so that's like a pathway where people, because you have no choice to steal if you want to get money, because nobody's going to hire you, right? But if there's more programs that are like workforce based without all of the barriers in place that a normal employer has, people will have the income to support themselves. And it's not going to eliminate harm. Like there still does need to be accountability when people are committing crime, but we also have to like reduce despair and the reason people commit crime, right? Like,
I'm gonna hit the pause button there. So our bylaws do require us to have 10 minutes of public forum. We did get about a 10-minute late start. So the way I see it, we still have 15 minutes. And more importantly, our room reservation goes to 9 o'clock. And I know that some of these discussions, they get really rich and, I think have an impact on the community. So we can continue talking. I'd like to see if there's nobody that's gonna speak in public forum, I would prefer to, we do have a couple people that want to speak in public forum. So we will wrap this up here at 5, and we'll give the public forum at 8:30 to talk about that. And Sebastian, I don't know if you had some final quick 30-second thoughts, or we're gonna save it, because I think as we hear tonight, like definitely still have questions, and I think we probably could talk for another hour here. At first I was like, I'm gonna have enough stuff to talk about for an hour and 20 minutes. I was worried, slow start, but here we are, an hour and 20 minutes later, and we had a good conversation. And I think my personal takeaway is human connections are really important to doing the healing work, to kind of bring people out of the situation that they're in. It sounds like there's widespread agreement among all of us in the room. We need more beds, we need more treatment beds, we need more recovery beds. State legislature, we need more beds. Let's get that out there loud and clear. Putting people in a hotel without wraparound services doesn't move the needle, doesn't solve the problem. We need treatment beds. We need places where people can go for an extended period and get supportive services, as all of these folks here have said tonight. So I hope that when the session reconvenes in January, you'll take some of this seriously and actually change your focus and away from putting people into a hotel and into more of longer term solution. And on that note, I will give Zach the final word, as I promised just a few minutes ago, and then we'll ready to public forum for the folks that want to go into that.
All right, well, thank you. So, having sat in many meetings of this nature and having done my own independent research and also research for my employers. Some things to kind of wrap up what's been said today and a summation from my own experience, everyone else's over the period of time. When it comes to the matter of enforcement, we need to be very cognizant and not to put too much blame or defamation onto us service providers when city and state security agencies have been, for lack of a better term, sleeping behind the wheel of either enforcement and or drug investigation. Our state auditor, Doug Hoffer, has issued 2 to 3 reports and several newsletters on the matter on how much money that the state legislature and the governor's administration has appropriated and spent. And over the past decade, we have seen $800 million be spent on homelessness and poverty care. And to relay onto something that was said by one of the panelists, that about a decade ago, the Burlington homeless population was hovering between 60 and 100 individuals, and now we're getting close to 400 individuals. So in 10 years, the state and the administration, the governor's administration, have spent $800 million, and the homeless population has increased 4 to 5-fold. So this is a conversation that as you go about your work and you talk to your employers and board members and respective executives and administrators, we really do need to hold the state and marquee care providers to account on, frankly, just the egregious waste that has happened. None of us in this room are particularly to blame on the matter because we're either all frontline workers or we either are victims of property destruction, personal harassment, either if you are housed or unhoused. So this is something for us to keep in the back of our heads. We are not necessarily to blame. And to almost work on this point, several years ago, the prior mayoral administration has asked the state if they could assume control of a building downtown and turn that into beds. That cost would have been around $3 million out of the $800 million that the state has allocated over the past decade. And that request was denied. So as we go about our lives as private citizens and care service providers and chief executives of departments, we do need to hold this in the back of our head when we communicate with elected officials at the city or state level on the just gross failure that they have put upon us, that they've conducted, and then have waylaid that onto providers and residents, housed or unhoused, of downtown Burlington. And another thing as we go about our days and whatnot is also thinking about how there are over 230 jurisdictions in the state, and seemingly only one has been put up with the burden of this. So this is another thing as we go about our work and our lives, is really trying to hold the other Vermont communities to account for, frankly, the negligence that they have done to their own needy population and to the greater Vermont society. So that's kind of my statements to wrap this up, is that everyone in here is doing the best that they can, living as a private citizen or being a service provider. Empathy fatigue is really starting to hit all of us hard at different levels and whatnot, or we feel like we're spinning the wheels, but we do have to realize that we need to rally together, because when it comes to our unhoused population and our population with substance abuse, it seems that downtown Burlington is the only bastion of hope in the Green Mountain State. I do know that hate apparently does not grow in this rocky soil, but apathy sure damn does. That's it.
Thank you, Zach.
So round of applause for all of our service providers and panelists. And also everybody who came out tonight on a rainy Wednesday, or here in person or online, you all had a choice on how you'd spend your Wednesday evening, and you chose to spend it with us here at the NPA. And for that, we are grateful. So before we pivot right into public forum, I just wanted to speak a little bit about public forum. You notice that it is at the tail end of our meeting, and not at the beginning as it is with a number of other public meetings, and gotten some questions in weeks past. Well, why do you guys have the public forum at the end of the meeting? And the short answer is we wanted to give people an opportunity to go to the meeting, listen to the presenters, the topic of the day, whether it's one kind of in-depth presentation or panel as we had today, or a series of different presenters, and give them an opportunity to reflect on what they've heard. So that was kind of the thought there. And we do mix it up sometimes. We will move it to the end, but we're still feeling it out. We like to keep it real and keep it interesting, kind of like going to a jam band concert. So on that note, I'll turn over. Bella, do you want to lead off, or do you want to go ahead, or
Zach?
yeah? Do you want to give the hot mic, or who? Who's not mic?
Who's gonna do it? Can I
Well, we typically do 2 minutes, but since we have 10 minutes allocated and we only have 2 people who want to speak,
I would like to throw in a couple,
now we're done.
but you guys should go.
You just ruined the math. All right, thank you.
Out there. Oh, I spoke early, so I would.
Now, there's a time before we could get 3 minutes at the city council too, but save that.
Be able to get by.
Yeah, there you go.
If you want to.
Okay, so thank you.
All right, so Ed.
Teresa also on.
All right, so,
Was this
so I guess, yeah, keep it to 2 because I guess we have a couple other people, but yeah, yeah. We got the room till 9. We'll be real, but yes, people do want to go home, but say your piece.
Well, first of all, I want to thank all the service providers and all the people here, but really Teresa and Jessica. Teresa, has embedded herself in this process, knows the state medical office requirements inside and out, and is doing a great job of ushering in this very, very important innovation. And Jessica, sometimes as a person with a history of drug addiction and all my skin in this game, I wonder about the people who are using drugs on the street and whether or not they'll be heard. And when I listen to you, I have no fear at all. I want to thank you. Oh, she is the voice of these people. I'm going to read, for my part, what I think is a beautiful, inspirational statement, and I think you're all really going to enjoy it. I don't think you've all heard it. This is a declaration in support of our Overdose Prevention Center from the First Unitarian Universalist Society of Burlington, the beautiful steepled meeting house at the head of Church Street. Quote, declaring that every person is inherently worthy and has a right to flourish with dignity, love, and compassion, and following our congregation's visionary end to use for a greater good our power as a faith community in Burlington, and living into our mission to care for each other and our community, we, the board of the First Unitarian Universalist Society of Burlington, enthusiastically endorse the establishment of an overdose prevention center in Burlington and urge those responsible to make haste in doing so. The establishment of an overdose prevention center is an asset to our home, our neighbors, ourselves, and our shared community. The establishment of such an asset aligns with our core values, declaring that we are all sacred beings, regardless of our relationship with addiction or recovery. The provision of this kind of intervention is medically sound and evidence-based, and is a form of beneficial adaptation to a changing world. The access to safety, treatment, and recovery that an overdose prevention center offers affirms the interdependent nature of our existence, and that the health of our community is strengthened by the presence of an overdose prevention center in our midst. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Bella Fern. I'm a resident of Ward 3. I also am an organizer with an organization, or a group rather, called the BTV Cleanup Crew. We have been going out for 23 weeks now, which is so exciting. So I'll be up 7:30 tomorrow. I just wanted to invite folks to the space. It is early, I will give you that, and it has just been such deeply meaningful work. It is truly one of the highlights of my week. And we see everything. So when we go out into the community, we see, we go out to the places in the community that a lot of people have never been before, into these back alleys, into these spaces that I often don't spend a lot of time in myself. And I just wanted to share a little bit about what we've seen in that space and what that's really made me think about as a community member. A couple of weeks ago, we came across, we were in the alley space and we saw, sorry, it's going to be hard for me to say, two used Narcans. One of them was bloody and a bag that was a bag valve that was clearly used for CPR. So this was, to my understanding, what an overdose site really looks like in the community. And we see something like that pretty much every week. And it's just really made me think, at least as a resident, to express my support for a space like this. I love taking people into these spaces, and I think all of us are really heartbroken when we see people in our community suffering with substance use disorder. We also hand out HRP bags. I put them in the Little Free Pantry on, King Street every single week, twice a week, put about 7 bags there, and every time they're all gone. So these resources are desperately needed by our community members. And so I'm just really excited to never see an overdose site again when we're out collecting syringes. And I'm really grateful that the Overdose Prevention Center will be collecting syringes and disposing of them, because I also don't want to see those in my community anymore. I'm hoping to never have to get up at 7:30 in my lifetime at one point and have to clean up syringes in the community. And I really think it's possible with so many caring members of our community doing this work. We've had over 100 volunteers, logged hundreds of hours, and oh my gosh, the amount of trash that we've picked up. That's the majority of what we pick up in this community. So that's all I really wanted to say. Thank you. Yeah.
Once again, thank you for everybody for coming. Again, this is the second year we've done this kind of a topic in November. I think it's going to become an annual thing. Oh, Milo, sorry.
Milo.
Thank you.
Oh, and Teresa. All right.
I did have a couple of things, but the crew here filled that in because the ideas that were expressed are valid ideas. And in large, I don't think anyone's against them. We literally we have a shortage. We can talk all day about people being quote unquote, committed or forced into treatment. We can't meet the demand for people who want to go voluntarily. And that is a failure. And I know some people disagreed with me when I said it before, but it's not just our state legislature. We have to be in contact as individuals reaching out to the governor. I think the governor started hearing from more people, came in, met with our mayor, met with our police chief, and put forward some things. So one item that I did forget to mention was the special court that has been set up with the special prosecutor. Our state's attorney, Sarah George, is extremely happy about this. This is the type of help that she has wanted to see for quite some time, where you are taking individuals that have done crimes where our statutes don't allow them to be held, but they're walking around in a way where you can't, if you have multiple cases, you can't find housing. It's harder to find a job. You have to have these things resolved. So being able to say, hey, I want this individual and there are 8 open cases, let's adjudicate them and let's figure out what needs to happen. Do they go to treatment court? Well, adjudicating their cases faster all at once will help get them to that place. Or does something else have to happen? So I just wanted to mention that we just don't have the resources, and we talk in ways where we are sometimes trying to run before we can even walk. And I guess that's all I'll say. Thank you.
Thank you, Milo.
And just super quickly, super quickly, as I sort of like led in some of my comments earlier, the city and VCGR are hosting a webinar tomorrow night. Everyone got the flyer here. It should also be on Civic Clerk, and we put out several blasts about this. It's on the city website as well, on the Overdose Prevention Center page. If you all haven't checked that page out and you want to know more about the project and the OPC and can't make it to the event, great spot, but also it'll be live streamed on CCTV through town meeting. Thank you, Ed. So it'll be available for future viewing. We have incredibly wonderful speakers. We'll have Dr. Brandon Marshall from Brown University. We'll have Ashley Perry from the Rhode Island program, and Jess Kirby, myself, and other members of our teams there to really share information, but also there will be a question and answer period at the end as well. And so I just want to make sure that people know about that. We are launching our OPC community survey tomorrow night, and this survey will begin to be available tomorrow at the event, and it will run through December 15th. So just another opportunity to learn more about how you can be involved and have your voices heard, and it really matters. So thank you.
All right,
20 seconds. If it's not obvious, many of my, friends and neighbors in Ward 3 are deeply concerned about the precious few that are ruining it for the 44,000 people that are in the city. So I totally get, and I'm not going to debunk, and I have compassion for the several hundred, but the impact that they're having on the 44,000 of us around is disproportionate. So done.
Can I speak to that?
sure. Got 9 o'clock.
I'm not going to talk that long. So what I was going to bring up first, in the first place, the accountability court that Milo was talking about. That I think, so in addition to it's, like a fast track thing, there are also clinicians and there's service providers that will connect with that person in the moment. You also get fast tracked into the option of services. So it's like treatment court and substance use court and all the other, or mental health court. And I think for some people, in addition to not being able to do things, I think for many people, having all of those court cases over their head and never really getting resolved really kind of says to some people, like, what you do is of no consequence. Like, it doesn't matter. You don't matter. None of that matters. And so for some people to have this opportunity to address it, that's going to be hopefully their kind of come to Jesus moment where they say, you know what, I have this opportunity. Everything's being laid out for me. It's a variety of options. And I'm going to take it. And I'm going to see if I can get off this cycle. So it's a pilot. We don't know how it's going to go. It's looking good so far. But there is some thought to that, that in addition to helping all of the people who want to go, which I agree, we don't have capacity, so maybe they should be first. But there is thought to the people who maybe they do need to be helped the most because they're really, those 40 people are the ones who are like super stuck. And so trying to look at them from a more holistic point of view and using their court interaction as the vehicle to get their attention.
So once again, so try to wrap this up again. Third time's a charm. Again, thanks everybody for coming out tonight. You could have done any number of things on Wednesday, but you chose to be here with us, and for that we are grateful. I am personally grateful for the fact that we had almost 15 to 20 something people in the room with a lot of different opinions. But we were able to have a cordial community discussion about a very controversial and important topic, and we didn't yell and scream at each other. We didn't threaten each other. We did it civilly. We did it as adults, and I think that the rest of the country could learn a hell of a lot by watching how we handle how we do things here in Vermont. So thank you for coming out. I'm kind of walking away from this with still having questions. Okay. Maybe we need to do a part 2 in a bigger forum, but for 2 hours, because I think we have enough to talk for 2 hours. So thank you once again, everybody, for coming out.
Thank you.
Good night, and may the 4 winds blow you safely home.